Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a really tangled set of sources. It's this story spanning, 11 years, all secrets, disappearances, betrayal. Basically, a suburban nightmare unfolding.
Exactly. And our job today really is to untangle it.
Uh-huh.
The source material we've got is, well, it's designed to mislead. You got these dual timelines, narrators you just can't trust, loads of red herrings.
Right.
So we need to piece together who was missing, who was eventually found, and crucially, who was actually behind it all, because the sources use all this confusion to hide the truth.
Okay, let's rewind. 11 years before the big reveal, it kicks off with two women vanishing pretty close together. First, Shelby Tebow goes for a run, never comes back.
Standard missing person case initially.
Yeah, seems that way. But then, boom, shortly after, Meredith Dickey, who's a local doula, and her little girl, Delilah, just 6 years old, they disappear too from their home. So the question is, what's the link?
Well, the connection starts getting complicated right away, especially with Meredith. The sources show her as someone under immense stress, and she had this secret life, multiple affairs.
Still escapism, release, revenge, and her, internal thoughts described in the sources. Felt she was a good liar, too. Sneaking out, meeting guys like someone called Sam.
And it gets messier. One of these affairs wasn't just some random guy. It was Marty Hanukkah.
The neighbor's husband.
Yeah, her friend and neighbor Cassandra's husband. Talk about close to home. It's incredibly intense, that level of betrayal right next door.
So that drama itself feels like a potential motive, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it functions as a great narrative distraction. While Meredith thinks she's hiding everything, she starts getting these really scary anonymous texts. I know what you did. Hope you rot in hell. Things like that.
Immediately makes you think stalker, blackmailer, someone found out.
Exactly. It points outwards, away from the core events maybe. But here's the thing, when we analyze it, how much of that focus on her secret life is just setting her up, making her seem like someone who, might have made enemies?
Creating a whole pool of suspects right there in the neighborhood.
And the sources do eventually reveal who sent the texts. It wasn't some shadowy figure. It was Cassandra.
The neighbor she betrayed.
Right. Cassandra suspected the affair. So, boom, the motive shifts from maybe professional or random to intensely personal, intensely emotional. A perfect distraction right at the start.
Okay, but the really crucial link, the one connecting Shelby, the first missing woman, and Meredith.
It was professional, wasn't it?
Yes. Meredith was Shelby Tebow's doula, and this is critical. Shelby was scared. She texted Meredith saying she was afraid of her husband, Jason Tebow.
And Jason wasn't exactly a fan of doulas, apparently. Suspicious of Shelby, too.
Very suspicious of her fidelity, yeah. He was cynical about the whole thing. So naturally, when Shelby disappears...
She's suspect number one, instantly. There were reports they fought a lot. His own friends apparently told police Shelby was a liar and a con. It fit the narrative of a domestic dispute gone wrong. He looked perfect for it.
But the sources throw in another curveball, don't they? Another potential motive, completely different?
They do. A professional one. Meredith was apparently gearing up to sue an obstetrician, a Dr. Feingold.
Over what?
Medical malpractice. Specifically about non-consensual procedures during Shelby's delivery, things like an episiotomy, using forceps without clear consent. It was a high-risk birth.
Wow. Okay, so now you've got a doctor with a reason to silence her.
Precisely. It's a classic setup in these kinds of narratives.
Yeah.
You've got Jason, the emotional, obvious suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Then you introduce Dr. Feingold, powerful professional, potentially facing a career-damaging lawsuit.
And did he know Meredith?
Well, when Josh's partner, Kate, questioned him later, he outright lied. Said he didn't know Meredith at all.
Which just makes him look guiltier.
Exactly. It reinforces his motive. So now think about it. The sources have given us the scorned neighbor, Cassandra, the potentially abusive husband, Jason, the lying Dr. Feingold.
So many people who might have wanted either Shelby or Meredith gone. It completely pulls your attention away from anyone else.
Perfectly executed misdirection. The web of red herrings is dense. And it works. Jason Tebow gets charged, convicted, serves years for Shelby's murder, even though her body wasn't found.
So everyone assumes, okay, tragic, Jason did it. Meredith and Delilah are still missing, maybe runaways, maybe victims of someone else, but Shelby's case is solved.
Yeah, the immediate heat is off. Until 11 years pass.
And then everything explodes back into the open. A girl appears, escaped from captivity, and she's identified as Delilah Dickey.
This part of the narrative, detailed in the sources, is just harrowing. The girl describes being held in this box, pitch black, concrete, cold underground, no windows.
Horrified.
And her only company, an imaginary friend she called Gus.
The sources really dig into her survival story, don't they? The details are intense.
Oh, absolutely. Like how she did calisthenics constantly, just exercises, so her legs wouldn't, quote, forget how to run.
God, and the spoon.
Yeah, sharpening a stolen spoon on the toilet lid,
Yeah.
painstakingly,
Yeah.
to make a weapon. That's how she tried to escape.
And the physical state she was in.
It backed up the story. Bare feet completely torn up from running on pebbles, weeds, visible injuries, the sources mentioned, bleach burns, scars from a belt, clear signs of malnutrition, being forced to eat, like horrible mush.
It's just so brutal and so detailed. It feels completely real. You can't help but believe her.
Which is exactly what happened. The police, the family, Josh, Delilah's father,
Mm.
they desperately wanted her back. So this traumatized girl, barely able to speak, calling her own father sir out of fear.
They accepted her. They needed it to be true.
They did. The narrative provided by this escapee, who they believed was Delilah, was horrific, but it felt complete. It offered a kind of closure, even amidst the horror.
But it wasn't the real story. Not entirely.
Not at all. The first little crack appears when the girl confesses, Gus ain't real, just throws a tiny bit of doubt.
But the big break comes from someone inside the family.
Right, Josh's son Leo. He's looking at her, really looking, and he notices something physical the police either missed or maybe ignored.
What was it?
The girl didn't have Delilah's chin. The real Delilah had a very distinct genetic cleft chin. This girl didn't.
Oh, wow. That's concrete.
It is. And that observation is the key that unlocks everything. Leo starts asking questions, digging around. He finds out the DNA test results, the ones that supposedly confirm she was Delilah, are missing.
Missing or never existed.
Well, it leads to Detective Carmen finally breaking down, she confesses. The DNA test was done, and it was negative.
So the girl wasn't Delilah.
No, she was Carly Bird, a completely different kidnapped girl who had endured her own very real, very brutal captivity. But it wasn't Delilah's story.
And the detective just lied.
Lied. Deliberately. Carmen admitted she did it to spare Josh and the family more pain, more uncertainty. She saw their desperation and made a terrible choice.
So the whole incredibly detailed, gut-wrenching story of the dungeon, the spoon, the escape, it was true for Carly, but used by this situation, by the police, as this massive emotional distraction.
Exactly. Carly's genuine trauma became the perfect cover, obscuring what really happened to Meredith and the actual Delilah.
So if Carly wasn't Delilah and her story wasn't their story, who was responsible? Where was the real Delilah?
The answer was, again, hiding in plain sight. Right there in the neighborhood, it was B.
B, Kate's partner, Josh's neighbor.
The very same. The person nobody suspected. And her crime, according to the sources, connected both disappearances in a way nobody imagined. It was all about self-preservation.
Okay, walk us through it. How did B end up involved with both Shelby and Meredith?
It starts with Shelby's death. It wasn't Jason Tebow, it was an accident, a drunk driving hit and run.
And B was driving.
B was driving, and Meredith was in the car. They hit Shelby, who was out running late, panicked, drove off.
Oh my God.
But then Meredith's conscience, or maybe fear, got to her. She threatened to expose B, and B just snapped. Her whole life with Kate was on the line. She told Meredith flat out, I can't go to jail.
So B attacked Meredith.
In the Dickey's own garage. That's where the confrontation happened. Later, forensics found B's blood there, evidence of a struggle.
And she killed Meredith.
Yes, but she tried to make it look like a suicide. Faked some shallow cuts on the wrists, then delivered the fatal wound, a stab to the abdomen, staged the whole scene.
But why take Delilah? That's the part that never made sense if Meredith had just run off or died by suicide.
Because Delilah saw it. 6 years old, but she witnessed the attack in the garage. She was a witness B couldn't leave behind.
So B kidnapped her.
Kidnapped her, but didn't put her in a dungeon like the one Carly described. That wasn't Delilah's experience at all.
Where was she then? All those years.
Hidden. In the soundproof attic studio above B and Kate's garage.
A soundproof studio. The irony.
It's incredibly tragic. A space meant for, music or art turned into a prison. The real Delilah was found there. Physically safe, relatively speaking, but deeply traumatized. She'd spent 11 years watching the world through a tiny hole B had carved in the wall for her.
Just hidden away in silence, while everyone believed she was gone, possibly dead. Or was this other girl Carly?
Exactly. The contrast between Carly's story, the dark, brutal dungeon, and Delilah's reality, the silent, isolating attic, is stark. One narrative was designed to shock and explain. The other was purely about concealment.
And the fallout from Bia's actions, it just ripples outwards, destroying everything.
Completely. Meredith is dead, her reputation only partially cleared after the suicide staging was revealed. Delilah is back, but scarred for life.
And Jason Tebow, the man who paid for a crime he didn't commit.
11 years. He served 11 years in prison for Shelby's murder. Gets released, finally, only to find that his wife died in a hit and run. The child he thought was his isn't biologically his, and his life is just shattered.
All because B panicked after a drunk driving accident and couldn't face the consequences.
It all comes back to that. Layer upon layer of lies and misdirection built on that initial act of fear. Meredith's affairs, Dr. Feingold's potential motive, Jason's wrongful conviction, and then the ultimate narrative smokescreen. Carly Bird's horrific but unrelated ordeal.
The sources really show how compassion and desperation the police wanting to help Josh wanting his daughter back, were weaponized unintentionally to keep the focus off B, the quiet neighbor.
It's a chilling example of how the most plausible story isn't always the true one. B's fear, her desperate need to protect her life with Kate, led her to methodically dismantle so many other lives.
That soundproof room, meant for creativity, turned into a cage. It's just devastating.
It truly is. The core takeaway, I think, is how easily truth can be buried under layers of more dramatic, more emotionally resonant, but ultimately false narratives.
So here's something to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. The sources mention Carly Bird, the girl mistaken for Delilah, obviously had her own family. They must have been searching for her for years. Now, the truth is out, not just about Delilah, but about the police lie and Carly's misidentification, all amplified by the media frenzy. What does it mean for Carly and her actual family finally finding each other after all this time under these circumstances? That's something for you to consider.